Hi everyone. As promised, I am here today to tell you guys all about my paranormal / ghost story in our Airbnb that we stayed in Mexico City that I briefly talked about in my last video. And I asked you guys if you would be interested in hearing the story, and a ton of you guys replied that you wanted to hear it. So by popular demand, I'm here to tell my story. And I actually just realized that it was almost like 6 p.m. here. So I wanted to hurry up and make this video because I'm here by myself right now and I'm totally a baby, and this story is still freaky to me. Although I'm not actually home alone because Hannah is with me to protect me. Hello, baby. And she also brought her toy onto the bed. I seriously can't. And thank you guys all so much, by the way, for all of the amazing comments and messages from my last video about Hannah. So for those of you guys who don't know, I was in Mexico City about a week and a half ago with a bunch of friends, and we were celebrating our friend Kendra's birthday, and she actually booked all of our travel plans and our accommodations. So she was the one who picked out our Airbnb. And when we got to Mexico City, the woman who owned the Airbnb was extremely knowledgeable about the history of the house, and she told us all about it on the first day that we were there. So I'm basically going to give you a very quick and brief background of the house that we stayed in, and I took some videos before I left Mexico City of the house, so I'm going to try to like insert them so you can kind of get an idea of how the house was laid out. But basically the house that we were staying in had a really unusual history. So the house was built by Juan O'Gorman, who was a famous architect in Mexico, and he actually built Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera's first studio, so a very important piece of Mexican history right there. But yeah, so the house was built by this guy named Juan O'Gorman, and as he got older, he developed some health conditions, and he actually ended up committing suicide in the backyard behind the house. So all of this information was relayed to us by the current owner of the house, who has basically tried to keep the house in its original condition. So a lot of the stuff in the house is really old. Basically, the property is gated all around, and when you walk inside of the gate, there's a pretty large kind of courtyard area / garden area, and you can enter the house from 2 different directions. You can enter from the kitchen, which is around the side of the house, or you can enter through like a formal living room, which is connected to the studio. And in the living room of the house, there's like a huge window that overlooks the garden. And if you're in the garden, you can see through the house via that window in the living room. And there's a spiral cement staircase leading to the upstairs, where there are 2 bedrooms. There's a master bedroom with a master bathroom and kind of a dressing room area. And then there's another bedroom, which is where Nick and I stayed. And attached to that bedroom is like a little vanity area / office. But I was using that room a lot at nighttime to just kind of like work on my computer and edit videos and stuff like that, because as you guys know, I felt really sick when I was in Mexico. I had a really hard time sleeping pretty much the entire trip, and my boyfriend was going to bed really early. So when he was sleeping in the bedroom, I was in the little office kind of area off of the bedroom. He has to sleep in complete darkness, so it worked out actually really well. And off of that kind of vanity office area, there was a door to a huge balcony that had like a couple different levels to it. And again, if you guys watched my Get Ready With Me in Mexico video, I have a segment where I'm like eating breakfast on the roof. So that's the outdoor patio that I'm talking about. So I hope you guys can get kind of a general idea of the layout of this house. So like I said, I was sick for pretty much the entire trip, and I did manage to still leave the house and do a bunch of things, but there were a couple things that I had to miss because I just wasn't feeling up to it. So there were like a lot of group activities that had been planned. So one of those things was the second to the last night that we were there, and it was like a wrestling match, something very touristy. I think it was called Lucha Libre. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But the whole group pretty much went to see this wrestling kind of tournament thing, and I stayed at home by myself. So on the night that they left to see this wrestling match, I was at the house by myself for probably about 4 hours, and it started to rain really hard, and it hadn't rained the whole time we were in Mexico, and I being from the East Coast, I love the rain so much. I actually miss it all the time in LA. So I was really excited that it was raining. And I actually went outside on the patio and I was sitting out there for a bit in the rain because it was like warm, kind of tropical rain. And it felt really nice. And then it started thundering and everything like that, and I went inside and basically was just kind of like working on my computer in that little office area off of the bedroom that we were staying in. And at a certain point in time, I decided that I was gonna go downstairs to the kitchen to make some dinner for myself, or attempt to eat, even though I was still feeling sick. And I made a very conscious effort to leave the light on in that office area because the house is kind of like hard to navigate around in the dark, and it was super dark because it was storming outside, plus it was getting later. So I decided I would leave the light on in that office area and also a small light in our bedroom so that when I came back up the steps I could just see where everything was. And there were also a lot of loose floorboards in the house, not in a real dangerous way, but when you were walking around you could feel the floorboards kind of like giving way. So I just wanted to leave a couple lights on so I could see where I was going. So I went downstairs and I was actually going to film a vlog while I was making dinner, and I started to film the vlog and I actually have a clip of that. Hey guys, so it is my last night in Mexico City and it is now Friday, so it's been about 6 days. For starters, we're staying in an amazing house. Juan O'Gorman, the architect who built the house, actually killed himself on the property. It was actually towards the end of his life and he was really sick. So I started filming and I got this really kind of uneasy feeling, and then my battery died. So I went back upstairs to get my spare battery because I always keep two with me, one that's charged in case my battery dies. And the light in the office area off of the bedroom was off. I'm seriously getting goosebumps right now, like talking about this, because it still freaks me out. And I know that I had left it on because I had just specifically noted that I was leaving it on so that I could like navigate my way back upstairs. So I kept going back in my mind like, maybe I didn't leave it on after all, you know, whatever. This is kind of like an old house. Maybe the light just went off, but I knew that I had definitely left the light on. So I turned the light back on in that office area and I was still feeling that like weird feeling, and I got my spare battery and then I went back downstairs making sure to leave the light on again, and I put the battery in my camera and I started filming again, and I just really felt this uncomfortable feeling and I never finished my video. I didn't film anything for the rest of the night. I just stopped filming and I made my dinner and I decided that I wasn't gonna film the video. So at that point I had heated up some tortillas. I don't remember what else I was eating, but I know I was eating tortillas, and I took them upstairs because I was basically thinking that I was just going to work on editing. And when I went back upstairs, the light in that office was off again. And this time I knew that I had definitely left it on. And again, I'm seriously getting goosebumps, like, can you guys see this? So the light was off again, and at this point, I felt just absolutely completely freaked out. Like, if I knew that there was a light in the second bedroom that went off all the time and was faulty, then it wouldn't really freak me out. But I had had that light on so many times for hours when I was working on my computer at night, and that had never happened before. So then I decided that I was going to try to like distract myself from feeling scared. And I kept telling myself that I was just feeling scared because I was alone in this unfamiliar place in Mexico. But there was just something about that moment that felt significantly more uncomfortable, or about that whole night that had felt significantly more uncomfortable than the rest of my days there. And I will also say that there was like a certain energy about the house. It didn't necessarily feel negative, but it didn't make me feel at ease. And I'm not someone who avidly believes in ghosts or paranormal events. I just feel like I'm very skeptical. And there have been a couple other things that have happened in my life that have felt a little bit unusual, but I've never actually like seen a ghost or had contact with somebody who's died or anything extreme like that. And I personally just tend to think that when people die, they die. And that is my own personal belief. I do feel open though to other possibilities. Like, I definitely believe in the flow of energy and, you know, just the power of nature. Like, I think the world is incredibly full of mystery, but I don't really believe in ghosts. So as a non-believer, I was really freaked the fuck out. So I go into the bed and I'm working on my computer, and then from the other bedroom, which was across the hall, like where I was sitting, it was to my right, I hear something that sounded like a drawer opening. And oh my god, I like can't tell the story. I'm seriously so freaked out. And that was like the final straw for me, where I felt like somebody else was in the house. Like, I just felt like completely freaked out. At the same time, it was like, you know, heavily raining outside, but it felt like a very distinct sound to me. And I was too scared to go into the other bedroom to investigate. And then like 5 minutes later, I heard it shut. And that was the fucking end. I texted everybody in the group. My boyfriend didn't have service because we don't have like international data plans. So I sent a group text to everybody who did have service, and I was like, weird things are happening and I'm by myself at this house. Please everyone come home. And in that second bedroom, there was this long desk and a weird little window that was a perfect circle above the desk that was overlooking the garden. The first time that I saw the window, I remember thinking that it was just really weird. It kind of looked like a watch window. Like if somebody was upstairs in that bedroom, they would be watching people that were outside. But almost as if you were the one watching, that people couldn't really see that you were watching them because the window was really small. But there was just something really weird about it. So when I heard that like noise of the drawer opening and shutting, I pictured it at that desk and as if somebody was in front of that window. So when everybody got home that night, I was obviously really freaked out, and I talked about it with a couple of people who were in our group. Obviously my boyfriend and Kendra, and there was another girl named Haley who was staying in the other guest house in the backyard with her husband, and I told her about what happened. So the next day, Haley told Paulina, who's the owner of the house, about what had happened to me, and Paulina told Haley that a lot of weird things had happened in that house, only in that bedroom. Cool. And I feel like in the future, when I stay in Airbnbs, I will opt to stay at places where people haven't died. Anyways, that is the end of my story. If you guys have any stories that are similar, I would love to hear your experiences or your thoughts. And if you guys don't believe my story, that's fine, but I promise you, it happened to me, and I don't really have an explanation, and I will pretty much be living in terror for the rest of the night thinking about it until my boyfriend gets home. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you very soon in my next video, and we will talk to you then.